Hello, welcome to Comic Tropes. I'm your host, Chris. Well, folks, it's the end of the year. It's the end of 2021, and at the end of every year, I always like to put together a list of my personal top 10 comics. It's mostly designed to be an easier episode for me to edit together than usual, and it's just a fun challenge, taking everything from the past year and trying to narrow it down to the 10 best. It's tough, but it's a fun challenge. Like I said, it's designed to be easier. I don't have too much of a script. I sent my whole staff home. There's no stylist. There's no editor. There's nobody manning the camera. I decided to figure out the focus myself. Anyway, without too much preamble, please consider hitting like and subscribe, and let's dive into the best that 2021 had to offer. Before I give you my personal top 10 list, I do have some honorable mentions that were all super close to making it into my personal top 10. Since this list is subjective, I would still give all of these strong recommendations. They include Berserk. Sadly, we only got a little bit of Berserk in 2021 as creator Kentaro Miura passed away this past May. But while we'll never get full closure on his epic, it did end at an overall high point for its protagonists, who've been through hell. The art is incredible, and if there was more of it, maybe it would have made it into the top 10. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Last Ronin. This is a fantastic comic, and it's really cool that the story is plotted by its two original creators, Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird. They haven't worked together on a comic since 1993's City at War storyline for the Turtles. That said, this book has been slow to come out, and Laird isn't contributing any of the artwork. This is a cool story, and it is great to have the original creators back, but it's not a book by just them. Demon Days. Demon Days by Peach Momoko and Zack Davisson is gorgeous to look at, and it's a fun look at the X-Men through the lens of Japanese folklore. But so far, it's mostly just been fun standalone stories. Perhaps next year, we'll tie the narrative together and bump it up the list. Something is Killing the Children. I made an episode dedicated to how much I like this title. It's arguably the best ongoing horror book today. I just personally found the issues in 2020 a bit more compelling, but I can also tell that it's building up to something big, so next year should be very exciting for this title. Stray Dogs. You'd never expect this book to work. It looks like classic Disney animation, and it follows dogs, but it's actually about tracking down a vicious serial killer. The trick is that the characters, like real-life dogs, have good long-term memory, but poor short-term memory. It's the second best comic about serial killers in 2021. Factory Summers. Guy Delisle has created some amazing autobiographies following his journeys to remote countries like North Korea and Burma. His latest, Factory Summers, brings the same intimacy and will be fascinating to comic fans, but he isn't in as dangerous or foreign a place. Instead, this follows him at his first job, working in a massive paper plant. A great read, only outdone by his previous efforts. And now that that's out of the way, we can begin focusing on my actual top 10, moving towards what, in my opinion, is the best comic of the year. But before we get to it, let's hear a word from my sponsor this week. I know my audience. And if I know you guys, you're really old and you're probably sick and tired of falling down in the shower, right? So why not consider a walk-in shower? A walk-in shower. That will keep you from tripping and falling on that hard porcelain. You're welcome. Check the link in the description below. Number 10. Cyclopedia Exotica. Aminder Daliwhal started sharing cartoons about a world where Cyclopes lived side by side with two-eyed humans on her Instagram account. It kept growing, and this book is the result. It's slice-of-life stuff following 10 main characters whose lives intertwine. It's funny, but also has a subtext about how minorities fit into society. This book will make you chuckle, cry, and think. Number 9. Ultramega. James Harren took an idea that on the surface looks like Japanese kaiju fiction and plumbed the depths of the idea. Where do the giant heroes' powers come from? What would having these powers do to your life? What do the villainous monsters actually want? But even setting aside this brilliant reconstruction of a concept that isn't explored a lot in Western fiction, the artwork is incredible. It's so action-packed, detailed, and gnarly that you will feel your teeth rattle when battles take place. Number 8. The Many Deaths of Laila Starr. This was the year that writer Ram V made his mark, and if you have only read his Marvel and DC stuff, you've slept on his best book. The Many Deaths of Laila Starr is the story of how Death loses her job and what happens after that. The afterlife, it turns out, is a bit of a bureaucracy. Death loses her job because a child is born that will one day invent immortality for all of humanity, so her services won't be required. She's given a severance, which includes getting to go to Earth to live out her days as a human. But Death only knows her work and wants to keep working. She finagles her way into taking over the body of Laila Starr, a young woman who just commits suicide. And she tries to enact her plan to kill this new child so that she can get back to work. Things get more complex from there, but it's an interesting look at an outsider learning to appreciate what it means to be human. It's also funny, and the artwork by Felipe Andrade has a flowing energy that reminds me of the best hand-drawn animation. Number 7. Reckless, Friend of the Devil. Anything by the team of Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips is likely to end up in my personal top 10. This is no exception. Reckless is still a gritty pulp drama about criminals like a lot of their other books, but instead of focusing on the story of a criminal, the Reckless graphic novels follow Ethan Reckless, a former FBI agent who survived a big explosion that left him a bit damaged. His emotions and empathy are faint. He now spends his days in 1980s Los Angeles, surfing and taking the occasional troubleshooting job to help people who have no one else to turn to. In Friend of the Devil, his second story, Ethan goes up against a satanic cult while tracking down a missing girl who had just broken into the film industry. Brubaker and Phillips can do noir mysteries in their sleep, but you can tell that they're both fully engaged and firing on all cylinders with these big, complete stories. Number 6. Immortal Hulk. Writer Al Ewing has wrapped up a 4-year epic on the Hulk that I believe will stand the test of time and go down as one of the definitive runs on the character. It brings the horror of a monster like Hulk to the forefront with a focus on body horror. 2021 gave us a solid ending to the mysteries of why gamma-powered individuals keep reviving from the dead, with an exploration of childhood trauma and living with dissociative identity disorder, plus a bunch of really brutal fights with monsters. Number 5. The Good Asian. Writer Pornsak Pichetshote has not been on my radar before, but The Good Asian has my full attention. Teamed up with artist Alexander Tefenki, this comic follows Chinese-American Edison Hark in 1936 Chinatown, San Francisco. Edison is a cop from Hawaii, dealing with a world that does not respect that authority. But he has to navigate the worlds of both the police and of immigrants to solve the mystery of where his adoptive father's beloved housekeeper disappeared to. This book is impeccably researched, and the setting is nearly a character in and of itself. Edison is a brilliant but deeply flawed young man who is in way over his head, but you can't help but root for him to solve this confusing case. Number 4. Asadora. I make no bones about the fact that I'm a massive fan of Naoki Urasawa. His comics tend to be epics with at least a bit of sci-fi and feature a wide array of diverse characters. Asadora begins in 1959, following 12-year-old Asa as she survives the Isawan typhoon that leads to the disappearance of much of her family. But that's just the starting point, as this strong girl becomes a driven young lady who is an amazing pilot. Recruited by the government, we know the story will one day end with her somehow saving Japan from a gigantic kaiju monster. But first, we have to get to know her to understand how she will be able to do that. Urasawa elected to draw most of the backgrounds himself on this book, uncommon for top-tier mangaka, and the artwork is stunningly detailed and energetic. Number 3, Beta Ray Bill. Daniel Warren Johnson decided to give us the story of a hero who has mostly been the backup Thor, and he gave him his own mission. In a heady mix of sci-fi and fantasy, Bill engages on a quest to claim the Twilight Sword, once used to destroy his homeworld, so that he can move forward with his life. Bill is a hero who allowed his people to artificially enhance his body so that he could become their protector, but he is now trapped in a body that he knows others see as monstrous. With the Twilight Sword, he can both get closure against an enemy his people never really got the chance to face, and potentially be able to become a man again. It moves at a lightning-fast clip, and the artwork manages to balance epic action with intimate human drama. The best superhero story of 2021. Number 2, did you hear what Eddie Gein done? I found this nonfiction book to be one of the scariest things I've ever read. Ed Gein was a serial killer whose story has inspired Psycho, Silence of the Lambs, and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. True crime writer Harold Schechter and artist Eric Powell teamed up to give us a detailed portrait of Ed Gein's life. He's almost sympathetic if he wasn't just a little too weird, and ultimately what he does is unforgivable, but this story helps make it a bit more comprehensible. A must for those who love true crime podcasts or streaming shows. Number 1, Monsters. How could the number 1 book of the year be anything other than Monsters by Barry Windsor Smith? This book took him over 35 years to complete, and the care and attention is infused into just about every page. What started as his idea for the Incredible Hulk's traumatic life as a child has now evolved and adapted into something much bigger and much more tragic. This story doesn't just give the main character an abusive father, it delves into what happened in wartime that damaged his father so badly. It shows us how acutely science run amok and government with little oversight hurts a wide swath of people. Everyone in this book, including the antagonists, get detailed portraits that help us understand who each person is. This huge story shows us 2 families and gives us a lot of pages to explore each family member who was affected by a decision to make a super soldier. The detail in the artwork is among Windsor Smith's best, and it is a story that will stay with you for a long, long time to come. I know my list may not include your personal favorite book of 2021, and I'm sincerely curious to hear in the comments below, what was your favorite comic of the past year? I love those recommendations. I'm just one person though, so I have not read every single book out there. I know that there's a lot of good ones that I've missed so far. I've heard great things, for instance, about Far Sector. That's a Green Lantern book, I guess, by DC Comics. I've heard really good things about that. Or Heaven No Hell by Michael DeForge. Just haven't gotten around to reading those yet. All I can tell you is that out of what I read, these are the books that I give an unconditional recommendation to, and I hope that it helps you discover something cool and new and different. It takes you down a path. I think every year has highs and lows, so it's kind of redundant to talk about whether a certain year had, a particular high or a particular low. Every year has that. All I can tell you is that the number 1 book this year that I chose, Monsters, I sincerely think that would be, if I chose books out of the top 10 lists I've made for like the last 5 years, Monsters has an excellent chance of being at the very, very top. It might not be for everybody, but wow, it was powerful. Great, great book. Folks, I'm so excited for 2022. There's a lot of great comics already announced. I can't wait to also be surprised by what's coming. So let's share recommendations with each other. It's the best way to discover new things. I hope you'll continue to follow me. Please consider hitting like and subscribe. And if you like my reviews, please also consider checking out my second channel, which is called Pros and Cons. There's a link in the description below, and there I do a weekly live stream every Monday where I do quick mini reviews of every comic that I read in the past week, among other vlogs and interviews, all sorts of fun stuff. I've got a lot of big plans for 2022 with this channel. I've been trying to focus on this channel a lot more this year. You know, I'll just break things down now. You've heard everything I need to say about the year in the past. I'm just going off the cuff at this point. I'll give you like a little behind the scenes look at me. I got COVID in early spring this year, and it was really bad. I was in the hospital for over a week. It was really touch and go. It was a very, very scary time. And it just helped me prioritize what's important. One of those things is making a lot more of this show and growing it. Another is making some of my own comics, which I'm hard at work on right now. So I'm very excited to share that with you. I made the tough decision to go part-time at what I've always had as my day job. And I see the growth happening on this channel. So that's all thanks to all of you. You're helping making a bit of my dream come true, getting to focus on a subject that I really am passionate about, the medium of comics. I think it's my favorite storytelling medium. I love movies and books and TV and stuff, but my favorite is comic books. I think that they're so versatile and engaging. It forces you to slow down a little bit and pay attention in a way that some other things are a bit more passive. And yet it engages you on a more visceral level than, say, a book, because some of the artwork can be so incredible. I know this is just a lot of thoughts, but it would definitely mean a lot to me if you're in a position to support my show on Patreon. That link is in the description for as little as $1 a month, you know, $12 a year. You're helping me make this, because I really can't do it if I don't have that support. So I just want you to know that that means a lot to me. This has been a great year for the channel. It's been a year that's helped me with my health. Even though I had that scare, it's made me refocus my efforts on my health. Maybe you can see that, maybe not, but definitely lost a lot of weight. So I'm focusing on what's important to me. My family, my work, the work that I really love, and, you know, just trying to keep my health up so that I'm really here for my family, my friends, and for all of you. You guys are really important to me. Thanks so much for making 2021 so fantastic, and I will see you next week. Keep reading comics. Thanks for watching this video. If you liked it, please consider hitting like and subscribe. If you'd like to support the show, there are merchandise links beneath the YouTube video, and you can always hit join on YouTube or visit Comic Tropes on Patreon to get access to special perks.